Ryan McGee, ESPN.com senior writer, Marty and McGee, which you hear on Saturday mornings here on ESPN Arkansas. Let's kind of go back into what he was talking about.
This regional belongs to the Razorbacks. A 3-0 weekend ahead of the Supers.
The East Carolina is the best program to never make it to Omaha. Arkansas, to me, is the best program that has not won the College World Series. It was Mississippi State. They took care of business. And so for Dave Van Horn, who has given so much to the game, and for Arkansas that has so much college baseball history, if they were to finally win it, that would be an easy column to write.
All right, we bring Ryan in here on the Lewis Automotive Group hotline. Ryan, I think I'm jealous of my co-host, like you probably were of your co-host on Saturday. Marty was in the North Carolina mountains. My co-host is currently in Boston and exploring the New England area. We got to get this figured out. Like, when do we get to go on these extravagant trips and do radio shows remotely? I think our co-host got the best of us this weekend, didn't they?
Yeah, I feel that way with Marty a lot because And listen, I did the show last weekend. I did the show for the Indy 500, and he was in Charlotte, and same with Daytona back in February. I get it, but you know, he does the show from the Masters and the U.S. Open and all that stuff, and I'm usually in the Charlotte office. But but that's all right. I always say when he and I travel together, he's always in seat 1A. And they're like bringing him food on like a silver platter, and I'm in like 19B. That just means he travels too much. So if the trade-off is I get to be home some, but yeah, I'm with you. You and I need to have a Zoom and talk, and we need to reevaluate our careers. Hash this out
a little bit. My co-host is doing first class. I'm in coach like you, so I understand that a little bit. Right, explain this phenomenon with the number one seed not being able to win this thing. I mean, since '99, Miami and Tennessee, the only number one seeds in college baseball to win the whole stinking thing. Tennessee wins the SEC tournament last year and wins the national championship. Why is that such a thing in college baseball?
I don't know. I've written stories about it. I've talked to analysts about it. I've talked to our stats and information nerds at ESPN about it. And we can't figure it out. And last year, Tennessee was – so they changed the NCAA baseball format in 1999. And that's when they went to the format that we have now. And it's 64 teams and the national seeds and all those things. And Miami won it that year. And not a single number one seed won the national championship again for 25 years till last year when Tennessee did it. And so it's only twice. Since 1999. So it is baffling. It doesn't make – and now the number two seed's gone too. And I think what it tells you is that even in a sport that at times has been really, really like top-loaded, like, for years, you had 8 teams going to the College World Series, and you had basically the same 5 every year with 3 other ones. LSU was there every year, and Texas was there every year, and Southern Cal was there every year, and Miami was there every year. But that's changed a lot, and every year the field is a little different. And, the people I go every year, and people in Omaha will tell you, if they grew up a Miami fan or they grew up an LSU fan or they grew up a Texas fan, and they don't see those teams every year like they used to. And so they're having to find other teams. So it's just a really, really difficult sport. And when you get on a heater, ask Little Rock, right? You get on a heater, you can beat about anyone, certainly over a 3-game series.
Who's more of America's team right now, UTSA or Little Rock heading into this matchup against LSU tonight?
Well, listen, because Little Rock's going to have prime time tonight, and because everyone knows what LSU has been, it's not even an argument. They're among the top 3 programs in the history of college baseball. And certainly over the last 30 years, I think they're number 1. And so for them to be there with a chance to win, and listen, all hands on deck, man. The kid that got the win last night is his first win of the year. So all hands on deck. Anybody you have that can throw a baseball, if you got a center fielder who throws a pretty good knuckleball, you need to have him on your pitching list because there's nothing to lose, and that's why I think people are going to be fascinated by it because it's interesting. If you think you're going to make it to the Super Regional and you think you're going to go to Omaha, you're already thinking about, if you're LSU, you went into this thinking about, all right, what about this pitcher and what about that pitcher? If you're Little Rock, Katie bar the door, throw everybody you got, and that's the situation LSU's in now. But it's awesome. I mean, a below 500 team that a lot of people probably didn't even know existed, that only pay attention like Power 4, conferences. I think it's the coolest thing ever.
Chris Curry, former DVH connection here in Arkansas, so I know a lot of Arkansas fans cheering for Little Rock to get it done against their rival later on tonight in Alex Box. We're talking with Ryan McGee here on the Lewis Automotive Group hotline. Ryan writes for ESPN.com. You hear him Saturdays here from 6 to 9 a.m. Central Time on Marty and McGee. Ryan, let's bring things back to Fayetteville. You referenced Vanderbilt and Texas being eliminated, the two of the top seeds. Arkansas now the highest seed remaining. Is that added pressure, or is that just a stat that we like to throw out there now that those two teams have been knocked out?
I think for some other programs it would be added pressure. I think for Arkansas, the pressure's already there. I mean, you played the clip of me talking about it on the show on Saturday. The two greatest programs to never win the College World Series are Arkansas and Florida State. Mm-hmm. And Florida State's been there way more times than Arkansas, but Arkansas's been there more in recent years. Florida State's not been much over the last 15 years, and Arkansas has become a regular visitor. So in the current era when we're playing, Arkansas is the best program that has won the College World Series. And so, and for Dave Van Horn, a guy who is so well respected. The first College World Series I attended in person was in 2001. There with my dad, we're just sitting in the stands Father's Day weekend, and Van Horn had Nebraska there for the first time. And I've never seen anything like it, the crowd. There were literally 15,000 people lined up for a couple of thousand general admission tickets, just hoping to get in the game. And so that guy has given everything he has, his whole life, to the game of college baseball. And the only thing missing for him is a ring, and the only thing missing for Arkansas is a ring. So I think the pressure was already there, no matter what the number was next to their name. If anything, I think that number, and you being the highest seeded team, if you're the Razorbacks, I think that's an advantage, because now – you're going to be hosting in one of the greatest atmospheres in college baseball, with a chance to go to Omaha. And having been there now, the deal. No one's going to throw anything at Dave Van Horn in Omaha he hasn't seen before. And so I don't think it's added pressure. I think the pressure was already there.
Ryan McGee with us again here on the Lewis Automotive Group hotline. Ryan, this weekend, Wake Forest or Tennessee, we'll know probably about 8 o'clock Central Time tonight in Knoxville whether the Demon Deacons or the Vols are coming in here. You're DVHing the staff and the team. I know, like, in your heart you want Tennessee. Probably in your mind you want Wake. What do you think shakes out in Knoxville later on tonight?
I think if you are a Razorback fan, I wouldn't read a whole lot into that last weekend series where Arkansas, took the Saturday and Sunday games for Tennessee, because this is not that Tennessee team. Y'all ask Vanderbilt. Ask those guys what that last month of the season gets you now. It doesn't get you anything. Yeah. Texas couldn't lose in the month of April, and now they're gone. And so I think, and I live here in North Carolina, my brother's a Wake Forest guy. He's not listening, so I can say this. If you're Arkansas, you want Wake Forest. Because this is not the Wake Forest. And you talk one of the great all-time, one of my favorite coaches. That coaching staff at Wake Forest is amazing. And Wake Forest should have won the College World Series just 2 years ago, when they have, to me, the greatest game ever played in Omaha, which is that lost to LSU. And but this is not that Wake team. This Wake team this year at times has looked pretty good, not great, and at times has looked terrible. And so the fact that they even have a chance to get to a Super Regional is a really big deal. But, yeah, if you're an Arkansas fan, I would always take the team that was happy to get into the tournament versus the team who's the defending national champion.
That's probably a good way to look at it. And Ryan, to your point about your brother, my brother, he's based in Dallas, but he goes to Winston-Salem. That's where his company's based out of. So he's got more information about Wake Forest in the last year or two than he has his entire life. So he's kind of like, yeah, we'd probably rather play Wake Forest this weekend as well. That is an SEC team that's on the brink of elimination, along with LSU, Oklahoma, and Ole Miss, depending on how things shake out in Chapel Hill, Oxford, and Baton Rouge later on today. Ryan, why does the SEC had a down weekend thus far? Based on our expectations, based on how many teams we expect to advance, what went wrong this weekend for the conference?
It's a great question, and I wonder. I wrote a story last week for ESPN.com about, leading into the SEC tournament, about how ridiculous that tournament was, and all that's true. But I wonder if – so I went to Tennessee. That's no secret. And when I was at Tennessee, Pat Summitt was the women's basketball coach. And what Coach Summit used to say was, I don't want to lose ever. She said, but the numbers are what they are. When Tennessee would be upset in the women's SEC basketball tournament, they almost always won the national championship. And if they won the SEC women's basketball tournament, they a lot of times would make it to the Final Four and get bounced in the first game. And so I think there is definitely something to be said. It's the same argument that we hear about football. About, do we really want to play more conference games and get beat up? It's this manifesto that the SEC all handed us last week from Destin, right? Which is this proving how difficult life is during the regular season.
Was that propaganda or real? Is that propaganda or real?
It was. I'll call it realaganda, all right, or proper real. It was somewhere in between. Okay. I think it was. There was some spinning going on, but the numbers are the numbers too, you know. But I think there's something to be said for that in baseball because this was the first expanded tournament, and it was single elimination. And because, I mean, I'll tell people in Arkansas, the pressure cooker that was particularly that month of May leading into Hoover, I think there's something to be said for that. But it's stunning, and it's but man, the buzzers start circling, don't they? As soon as the SEC, haven't won a national championship in football in the last 2 years, and you know how all these seeds bounced in the first round of the baseball tournament, man. The people in California and Michigan and Ohio have suddenly gotten very vocal.
Yeah, they're definitely more vocal than they have been in years past prior to since 2006. Ryan always references that the SEC has been involved in every single national championship or semifinal game since Florida won that national championship in 2006. So, again, the SEC has been – and if you want to count 2005 in Texas, you can do that, I guess, nowadays. So it's pretty crazy how far that now the SEC is like doing that now. It's like the SEC.
No, that's where it gets right.
Young,
you know, propaganda. That's where it gets weird.
Yeah.
Is when I go to like the SEC championship weekend for football, and they trot out the SEC legends, and it's some guy that played for Darrell Royal at Texas in 1967. I'm like, what? That guy that played in the SEC. And the ACC. Well, I live in North Carolina. The ACC is even worse about it. Oh, Fred Biletnikoff, ACC great. No, Florida State was they were 30 years away from the ACC, but you got to do what you got to do.
All right, Ryan, before we let you go, we've got a couple two-parter or a couple back and forths here. So now help me on this. My brain's a little foggy this morning. I'm running about 3 hours of sleep. When you and Marty asked the coaches at SEC meet, is it biscuit or cornbread or roll or cornbread?
It was biscuit or cornbread. Biscuits or cornbread,
okay.
Yeah. And most coaches were very definitive. Nick Saban gave one of the greatest answers of all time, and Jeremy Pruitt's answer was when I was like, oh, he's doomed.
He just did. All right, so I'm supposed to ask you, one of our listeners is supposed to between Captain America or Star Wars. Apparently that's a topic on y'all's show. Which one of those two?
You know, it's a topic on my show. Marty doesn't even know what Star Wars is. Like Marty, only movie Marty's watched in the last 30 years is Tombstone, and he just watches it over and over again. But I'm a Captain America guy. I have a Captain America shield that hangs on the set at Marty McGee.
Yep.
I have a Captain America sticker on the back window of my truck. But you know, I'm OG Star Wars, man. I was born in the 70s, so I could probably live without Marvel. I'm not sure I could live without Star Wars.
Before they ruined it with some of the newer movies, not necessarily the newer shows, but the newer movies, not as great. Squeeze play or red zone?
Squeeze play. Squeeze play is like a drug for me. Like I've never done drugs, but I kind of get it because when they go to that quad box. And they went to they had 6 games up at once, multiple times on Saturday. And I was texting Mike Rooney and Chris Budden and Chris Burke and Matt Schick going, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. And they all said, you probably should, have a better social life. But yeah, I love me some quad box.
All right, Ryan, before we let you go, how many cups of coffee were you drinking in the morning? We had listeners talking about 2 pots, 6 to 9 over the course of a day. I'm usually a 1 a day, just a one cup a day guy. How many cups of coffee are we drinking over the course of a work day?
Mine's kind of like a football game. I'll start with 2 early, and then I usually will take a break, and then I've got 2 in the afternoon. So at least 4.
Okay.
And you talking about Marvel, Star Wars, or Tombstone, or whatever. I think other than maybe hair and football, the most talked about topic in the history of Marty McGee is coffee. But I didn't drink coffee as a kid, or as a teenager, college, or whatever. But now I'll just mainline it pretty much all day.
We're getting older, man. I'm 30, and I found myself.
Yeah.
I didn't have to drink it 3 or 4 years ago, and now I have to. It's part of the.
Never drank it. I never drank it, and my mom would drink literally 2 pots a day. I would never drink it. But then when my daughter started elementary school, and I was having to haul her little butt. This is a long time ago. I was having to haul her little butt to school at 6:45 in the morning. And suddenly I was Maxwell House, and I became best friends.
Okay. Ryan, before we let you go, one football question. I know you guys spend a lot of time on your radio program discussing that. Tennessee, you referenced being a grad. I know there's a lot of questions about Josh Heupel's group. Arkansas is going there, I think, second week in October. 30 seconds or so. Just the thoughts on Tennessee heading into this year, transition to quarterback, and maybe what that game looks like coming up this fall when the Razorbacks and Volunteers go at it.
Well, first of all, everybody knows how I feel about Sam Pittman. I got asked a question by somebody just a couple days ago about, if there was one coach I could hang out with, who would it be? And I interrupted him and said Sam Pittman. Like, it's not even a conversation. Put me on the pontoon boat with some Coors Banquet beers with Sam Pittman, and that's one of the greatest days of all time. But I think the timing is going to be tough for Arkansas because by that point, Tennessee will have figured out what their deal is.
Mm-hmm.
And Tennessee has been the unwitting tip of the spear on this NIL thing. First, them putting the surcharge on the ticket, which everybody's doing now, but Tennessee was the first. And now, they were the first ones to kind of lose a big-time guy to free agency and have a media squabble over it. So I think Tennessee's going to be fine. I don't think they're going to contend for a national championship like they did. They had potential to a year ago. But that's going to be what we used to call $1 million ball game, that Arkansas-Tennessee game, because the winner of that game is probably going to be playing somewhere really, really nice New Year's. And the loser of that game is probably going to be playing somewhere, but might be here with me in Charlotte for the Mayo Bowl.
All right, Ryan McGee, ESPN senior writer, Marty McGee. You can hear him Saturdays from 6 to 9 a.m. Ryan, we appreciate you joining us this morning. Enjoy the rest of college baseball today and this weekend for the Super Regionals.
And now I want a cup of coffee, so thanks for that. I'm going to go drink one right now.
All right, get after it. Again, that's Ryan McGee. Appreciate his time this morning.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season is in full swing and we're into the NBA and NHL playoffs, and BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With the largest selection of odds on everything from the MLB, NBA, NHL, and UFC, BetOnline remains the best online source for all your sports wagering information. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. Bet online, the game starts here.